Greetings, my name is Viet, and I'll be talking about our work on the analysis of evolutionary diversity optimizations for permutation problems. In this work, we explore a topic that has recently gained significant interest in the evolutionary computations and AI community. While traditional optimization focuses on maximizing quality as much as possible with one single output, there are substantial practical uses for diverse sets of high-quality solutions as well. Having multiple solutions provides insurance against imperfect modeling of the problems due to prohibitive complexity or unpredicted changes, which are very common in applications. For example, imagine you need to travel to a set of locations at a minimal cost. You get the optimal tour from an off-the-shelf solvers along with a bunch of 1.05 approximation tools as backups. Now imagine some routes becomes unusable due to some unexpected reasons, maybe traffic jams or accidents. You need a quick change of plan, but you don't want to spend more resources computing new tours. These backups would provide alternatives only at a small compromise in cost. Additionally, since diverse subsets tend to be representative of the whole, these extra solutions would give us useful information about all solutions that are reasonably good, such as which components of other solutions appear more often, and thus are more critical than others. There are many benefits in having many different solutions rather than just one, making it attractive to decision makers. For this reason, it has been studied in the context of fundamental problems that usually arise in real-world situations, such as mixed integer programming, constraint optimization problems, SAT, and so on. These studies, ranging from early 2000s till today, involve a wide range of applications. In these studies, diversity of solutions is either the objective to be explicitly maximized or the constraints enforcing some level of structural differences among the near-optimal solutions to be found. Among evolutionary computation research, there have been many works on the problems of finding multiple solutions. Traditionally, these are dominated by research on multimodal optimization, which involves diversity preservation techniques such as niching, finish sharing, etc. In this context, solution diversity is regarded as the means to explore niches in the finished landscape, which correspond to regions of local optima. Another paradigm well studied in evolutionary robotics is quality diversity, which focuses on exploring many niches in the behavior space, typically with a large population. In contrast with these two directions, diversity optimization aims to explicitly maximize solution structural diversity, typically subject to a low bound on the solution's qualities. This aligns with the TSP example mentioned earlier, where the backup tours are diverse and are close to the optimal. With this paper, we aim to contribute to this line of research with the first runtime analysis of an evolutionary algorithms on diversity maximization for classic permutation problems, namely Traveling Salesperson Problems and Quadratic Assignment Problems. In particular, we consider a simple mu+1 EA using some common mutation operators, with the sole focus on diversity. Furthermore, we established empirical baselines for benchmark on several QAPLIB instances with two different diversity measures. To establish notations, we use S to denote a solution which is encoded in the permutations. Here we give a concise description of the TSP and QAP. Note that we consider symmetric TSP here. In this study, we are interested in the structure of the solutions and how the notion of distance between solutions differs between these two problems. This stems from the fact that different permutations, while representing different mappings in QAP, might not describe different tours in TSP. Nevertheless, beyond these details, the notion of diversity can be formulated in the same way, which leads to similar runtime results for different operations on permutation. In this study, we consider the problems of maximizing diversity of the populations of a given size, where all solutions satisfy some quality constraints. Typically, the quality threshold is to enforce some alpha approximations on every solution. Therefore, this problem is at least as hard as the alpha approximation problems, and thus is NP-hard for TSP and QAP. However, in this work, we assume that a satisfactory solution is given as a starting point. Even with these simplifications, the problem remains NP-hard still. As mentioned, for these problems, we consider a simple mutation-only mu+1 EA, with the usual parent selections, mutations, and survival selection steps. Of note is the survival selections, which only occurs when the offspring is of acceptable qualities. As this offspring competes with the other individuals, mu+1 candidate populations are formed. out of which the most diverse one survives to the next steps. The mutation operators we consider are the classic unbiased 2-op, 3-ops, and 4-ops, which can be implemented naturally on permutations. Since for each of these there are an order n squared different operations on any solutions, the worst-case runtimes reduced by them are largely identical with some distinction. As for diversity measures, we consider two commonly used distance-based measures. In both problems, a solution can be seen as a set of n objects, edges in TSP, and assignments in QAP. So we use the Hamming distance. The two diversity measures are the sum of sum, denoted as D1, and the sum of min as D2. It has been shown that the set of points that maximizes D1 tends to have clusters at the far corners and edges of the space, and little to no points in the middle, whereas the set maximizing D2 tends to spread out more evenly across the entire space with wide coverages. However, when each element is a set, D2 fails to distinguish undesirable behaviors, such as common subset phenomena, though we don't go into too much detail in this paper. As it is hard to properly capture many interesting diversity behaviors with a single scalar measures, we in our previous work proposed non-scalar alternatives to be used as fitness. These measures align with the established D1 and D2, meaning that they tend to be optimized by the same populations. First, we define the count n of objects I, j to be the number of solutions containing it in the population P. The first measure, n, is a descending sequence of these counts, which we want to minimize in a lexicographical order. The effect of this is that the occurrences of objects in the population tend to equalize, increasing entropies and also D1 since the Hamming distance is used. The second measure, D, maximizes pairwise distances by minimizing overlaps. This promotes large pairwise separations, thus maximizing D2. The non-scalar formulations provides tie-breaking rules that help deal with unfavorable behaviors undetected by D2. While it would seem that these would make survival solutions more computationally expensive, it was shown that only a small part of the sequence is needed when there's only one offspring, so fast implementation is possible. More importantly, these measures ease the formulations of fitness levels used in runtime analysis, which would have been much harder with the scalar measures D1 and D2. Here we focus on the fitness n, and it characterizes the fitness level with dp, the maximum counts, and cp, the number of objects with the maximum counts. We say that the transition to the better fitness level has occurred if either cp decreases or dp decreases, leading to the smaller np in either case. Now I'll outline how our worst-case analysis of the mu+1 EA was done. We explored pure diversity optimization to gain a first insight into the working principles of evolutionary diversifications of permutation-based solutions. We focus on getting the lower bounds on the probability of jumping to a better fitness levels with a good offsprings, which we will call a successful event. To this end, we only consider cases where local optima don't exist, meaning strict diversity improvements are always possible in one step. This is because otherwise the set lower bounds would be a trivial zero. To further simplify the analysis, we assume that each improvement comes from replacing the parent with its offsprings. If some other solution was replaced instead, then even better fitness levels would be achieved than if the parent was replaced as per the greedy selections. With this approach, we derive the following runtime results, where the third column contains the conditions for guaranteeing the lack of local optima, and the fourth column contains the corresponding lower bounds. We can see that the condition for 4-ops is more strict than those for 2-ops. Also, there are about twice as many objects in QAP instance than there are in the TSP instance of the same size, so the condition for 2-ops in QAP is about twice as lax. The lower bounds are mostly similar across the cases, with minor differences here and there. Finally, since the maximum diversity is reached when the maximum count is at most one more than the minimum, the worst case runtime is then mu squared n cubic, assuming initial populations of zero diversity. To derive these results, we consider the scenarios where an object removed by mutation has a maximum count dp, implying that the selected parent must contain such an object. Also, the new objects must have counts less than dp minus 1, so they don't exceed dp after mutations. Then we use the following equalities with the upper bounds on mu as mentioned before to derive the lower bounds on the success rate via pigeonhole principle. To be more specific, let's say the algorithm uses two ops on the tour which has an edge with count dp, marked in red. We remark that such a tour is selected for mutation with probability at least dp over mu. We know that the two adjacent edges in the tour has counts at least 1, the one being this tour. Now using the equality on the upper right corner, we have the count sum among the n minus 3 blue edges incident to one n vertex is at most 2 mu minus dp minus 1, which we denote with delta. Note that for ops, there would be n minus 5 blue edges instead. And by symmetry, we can say the same thing for the other n vertex. With this, we can say that there are at least this many edges with counts less than dp minus 1 incident to one n vertex. And in this example, there are 5 colored in green. Again, the same holds for the other n vertex as well. Now we can see that some of these green edges overlaps, and each overlap forms a set of two edges added by a beneficial two ops, in the sense that all added edges have counts less than d minus 1 and a removed edge has count dp, which is the original direct edge. By the pigeonhole principle, there are this many overlaps, from which we can compute the lower bounds on the success rates. We can also see that for this bound to be positive, mu has to be sufficiently small, hence the upper bound on mu. And finally, we use these bounds on dp and cp to count the maximum number of fitness levels and compute the total runtimes as the sum of expected waiting times until each jump to a better fitness level. As for 3 ops for TSP, we found that strict diversity improvements is not guaranteed even for trivially small populations. We show this by systematically constructing 3 tours of suboptimal diversity with any number of vertices divisible by 4 in a way that no single 3 ops on any tour would result in a strictly smaller fitness n. As such, we did not arrive at the runtime results for 3 ops with a non-trivial bounds on the population size. We remark that this may be due to the lack of symmetry in 3 ops that is present in 2 ops and 4 ops. Shown here is an example with 12 vertices. We refer to our papers for the exact construction formulations. For our benchmark, we chose 3 QAPLIB instances with known optima, which exhibit a good spread of sizes. We first ran experiments without constraint to observe how D1 and D2 change over time when N and D are used as fitness, and to see how runtime in practice differs from worst case. Then we experimented with varying values of alpha to establish baselines. In both cases, we ran the algorithm with 4 mu values, 30 times in each case, and allowed mu times n squared evaluation budgets. As the measure n is used to maximize D1, we denote the corresponding results of D1 and the others, similarly D2. We also normalize D1 and D2 values against the maximum and minimum in order to ease comparisons across settings. Additionally, to control for the initial population factors, these are set to be all duplicates, having 0 diversity. Here are the results from the first experiments, shown as plots of D1 and D2 against number steps. The red and black curves are from the first variance, the green and the blues are from second. The dashed lines show the average numbers of steps until terminations, which occurs when known maximum diversity is reached. Since most runs are terminated early, the x-axis ranges are scaled down for visibility, showing only a fraction of the total budget. We can see that only a small percentage of the mu n squared evaluations are used, except for one case due to unreachable termination criterion. Overall, it seems this percentage increases with mu, suggesting that mu contributes superlinearly to the runtimes. Meanwhile, it decreases with increasing n, indicating n contributing subquadratically. Additionally, the first variant doesn't seem to maximize D2 consistently, while the second maximizes both efficiently. In the second experiment, we recorded D1 and D2 score and a statistic called unique percentage, which is the portion of objects in the final population that belongs to exactly one solution. This quantity can be used to measure the level of richness in the solution set that is not generally comparable with other measures. The gray highlights denote larger values between the two variants with statistical significance as the results of the Wilcoxon test at 95% confidence intervals. As we can see, naturally, the final achieved diversities increase with alpha, albeit at different rates across the 3 QAPLIB instances. This gives an indication of how the objective landscape differs among these instances, namely slower increases might suggest more ruggedness. Of note is that maximizing D2 tend to produce populations with more unique objects, and the differences are more pronounced in larger populations and at smaller alpha. To summarize, in this study, we proved a worst-case runtime sub mu square n cubic for maximizing sum of sum diversity with mu plus 1 EA using common mutation operators, namely 2 and 4 ops for TSP and 2 ops for QAP, assuming small enough mu. Our experiments, aside from showcasing different behaviors from maximizing different diversity measures, also indicated more optimistic empirical runtimes. Specifically, the results suggested that mu contributes superlinearly to runtimes, while n contributes subquadratically. Finally, we showed that 3-op mutations may not be suitable for these problems, as it is susceptible to local optima even in easy cases, where the population size is small. Thank you for tuning in.